They said you were the best in the Parsec.
Welcome to
Parsec Passion, a podcast about Star Wars TV shows. My name's Bubba, and with me, as always, is someone who has no aspirations to choke on. It's Catfish.
Bubba. Yeah. I have summoned you here to grovel. Get started.
Come on. Guys, we are talking about Andor Season 3.
Season 3?
The movie Rogue One. The end of Cassian's journey. He won't close his eyes until it's over, right? You never. We're going to be doing it through a lens of having watched these two great seasons of Andor on Disney+. So how has our opinions changed? How have they stayed the same after watching Andor, then watching Rogue One? We're going to hand out, like always, our most valuable Rebel, our most valuable Imperial. We're going to ask Andor, what's that secret you're keeping after 2 seasons and a movie? And we're going to get to your feedback. How did you look at this movie differently after having really learned as much as anybody could about Cassian Andor? Catfish, let's hear it. What is your rating out of 10 for Rogue One?
Bubba, I am going to give Rogue One, a.k.a. Season 3 of Andor, 8 out of 10, what I like to call triple M's.
Triple M's?
Yes, that is when you CGI somebody 12 years ago. That is monstrously manufactured Moff. Oh my God. Bubba.
Yeah.
I forgot about, and I loved Donnie Yen. I don't know if you've seen his. I was so excited. I'm like, oh, Donnie Yen's going to get to see some action. He's been a bunch of chop him in the face, chop him in the leg movies, famously for Ip Man, the Ip Man movies that Ms. Catfish was calling IP Man, which I thought was hilarious because intellectual property man is going to kick
Star
you
Wars. That's what he is in this movie. He's an intellectual property.
Riz Ahmed, I thought he forgot he was in this. Bubba, I know somebody who went to RADA with Riz Ahmed.
Wow.
I saw Riz Ahmed in a short-lived group called Sweatshop Boys. It was the night of the 2016 election, so I have sort of a love-hate relationship with Riz Ahmed because we all expected good things that night, and it all came horribly crashing down. But we've got Mads Mikkelsen in this.
Great.
Love him. More K2SO than we had in Andor. The action scenes are dynamite. Bubba, one of my favorite parts, and this is no sarcasm here, of the Star Wars universe is the horrific office politics in it, and that continues here. It is delicious to see Krennic getting his from Moff and Vader after he smacked down so many in Andor. It was a beautiful comeuppance. You know, it was delicious to see Krennic get it when I originally saw Rogue One, but so much better to see it after he tried to squelch so many people. All right, so Bubba, you're saying Catfish, oh, you love this. Why 8 out of 10?
Why?
2 minuses, Bubba. -1 for Tarkin.
Oh.
Never again. Please either fix the CGI or take him out or have a cartoon. That was just so concerning. Another -1. Jin suddenly going so gung-ho about rebellion that suddenly she's inspiring the rest of them and giving a rousing speech that they were all agog at. I mean, listen, Ginny come lately. We know. We've been here for years. You just showed up. It is so bad, Bubba. It really, the first time I saw this movie without any of the preamble, it bugged me because I'm like, these people have been working for years and you show up and all of a sudden you're like, yeah, come on, people. Why aren't you dedicated enough to the rebellion? And now it's even more jarring after watching all of the sacrifices these people have made and to see Mon and Andor in this like, oh, wow, yes, she's inspired us all over again. That part was, so in general, the movie was as good or better than I remembered it, and the things that bothered me about it bother me even more today. So it was a beautiful, I thought they did a really good job leading up to this, knowing what's going on. There's only, and funny, I was looking, I'm like, all right, so look, I know they planned for this, but there's got to be some things that maybe they didn't keep in mind that would stand out when you watch Andor. You're like, oh, they're somehow ruining the continuity of it. There was only one small thing that I'll point out later
Oh,
that
wow.
that didn't seem to mesh with what we knew about especially Enter. But other than that, I loved it, Bubba. What about you? What did you give season 3 of Enter?
I really think that having watched these two great seasons of Andor, in the
Hmm.
end, my rating is kind of the same I would give the movie without having seen it, but I'm going to have to change it a little bit because I do think
Okay.
it does get improved a little bit. So, unlike you with your low rating of 8, I'm going to go 8.5 double D's out of 10.
Double D's?
Right, because I think this story might be Dedra dependent. Without without Team Dedra and Cyril, who on the Imperial side can I really root for other than Vader wreck shop, you know? But so my general thoughts when I first saw the movie, obviously all those years ago before Andor came out, I thought, boy, the last act is so fun, such action, such incredible action. But the first act I thought was kind of muddled even though
Okay.
we know so many of those characters at the Rebel base on Yavin, and we know Cassian so well, I do think that it makes me more connected to them. But I still think the beginning of the film is muddled. I'm going to say this real quick. The first Krennic Tarkin scene ends at 23 minutes and 47 seconds into the movie. So at the end of 23 minutes, approximately,
Hmm.
Tarkin and Krennic have had their scene. So that means in the first 23 minutes, we have an audience have had a flashback. We went to the
Yep.
Ring of Kafrene. We've been to
Okay.
Jeddah. We went to the prison planet. We went to Yavin. We went back to Jeddah and then the Death Star.
So
That
you're
means
saying we haven't gone to enough places, Bubba, because you're
that's
saying
what
it's a
I'm
little
saying.
slow.
These locations were, they're averaging under one location gets under 4 minutes. Like we're there and we're not there even 4 minutes. In those 24 minutes, the audience has to, before Andor, the audience had to understand all these characters. You had to understand, okay, who they are and how they're related to each other. Jin, her mother, her dad, Saw Gerrera, Krennic, Cassian, Tivik, Bodhi, K2, Mon Mothma, Draven, Tarkin. There are other people there, but you have to understand their relationship. Now, I think in a normal movie, that's not so much, but I think it makes the first part of this movie not really have much life because we're so go, 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 go. And what's interesting, we'll talk about this as we review the film beat by beat, is that some of those beginning beats didn't exist in the first shooting of the movie. They came with Tony Gilroy, the creator of the television series Andor, when he was brought in to rewrite the film. However, the one thing that I just got to say, why does it get a point 0.5 more with Andor where before? Is I do really like how we're more familiar with the rebels. We're more familiar with Krennic. Like you said, Krennic is easily just in this film dislikable, but after having seen all he did in season 2 of Andor, Krennic is horrific. You enjoy his death so much more. It makes
Well, not
Andor's
just his
death.
death, Bubba.
Oh yeah,
His
all crap.
death is okay. What I really enjoy is him getting smacked around by people. That's more enjoyable
Oh
because he
heck yeah.
comes off as such a badass, untouchable, and then people just use him as a punching bag, and it's glorious.
I love it. So, hey, that's our thoughts here at Double
Mhm.
PHQ. We love to say, who cares what we think? We want to know what you think. You're the third friend in our review of Andor Season 3. How do you tell us what your thoughts are? Well, if you're on YouTube, just go down in the comments, hit the like button, subscribe, go down in the comments and tell us this is what you thought of Rogue One after watching these two great seasons of Andor. If you're listening to audio podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, reach out to us on social media. We're on pretty much every social media platform. Our handle is
Everywhere.
double PHQ. That's the word double, single letter P for podcast, HQ for headquarters. Join us and tell us what you thought of this, pretty loved movie that's only gotten better after two great seasons of TV. At least in our opinion. What do you think? Catfish, you ready for some quick questions before we dive into this movie beat by
Sure,
beat?
let's do this lightning round.
Okay, so if you had to pick, is there a character who survived, who was alive at the end of season 2 of Andor, who you think would have made Rogue One? Like if that character had appeared in Rogue One, it would be a better movie. Off the top of my head, Vel's
Hmm.
alive. She doesn't appear in Rogue One. Wilmon, Kleya, Bix, Perrin, Lita. Somebody else I'm not thinking of. What's a character from the show Andor who you wish had been in Rogue One to make it a better movie?
Bubba, I'm gonna say Leda,
Your
so
favorite
we could
character.
actually see her die. No, no, no. The truth is, Bubba,
Yeah.
and I had to look it up here because I thought later on in the film, I saw the same actor who played the Gore Senator. I thought he was there. I was completely wrong. It looked like
It
him.
looked like it.
So I'm
That's
going to
true.
say my answer is the Gore Senator. That would be a totally awesome if a guy who had a minor part that they put him in Andor. That would have been so good.
Right.
What about you, Bubba?
Senator from Gorman. How did you get out of prison? Well, they were so happy with what our Calcite had done, they let me go free. So I could see what my plan had contributed to the Empire. I mean, to me, I do think any one of the kind of survivors there on Yavin, meaning Vel, Wilmon, Kleya, I think they would have been fun. But the one I really wanted to see? Perrin. That is a lovely planet called Scarif. They end up at the end, where it's a great battle, but it's like a tropical paradise. What we needed is amongst all the fighting, we needed there to be a resort, and Perrin was there at the resort drinking up, living the life. That's what would have
Well,
made it better.
you know what, Bubba? They have
Yeah.
gone back. George Lucas, anyway, has gone back and
Yeah.
fixed
Oh, yeah.
the movies. So maybe for you, at some point, they'll do the Rogue One Ender edition, and they'll put Perrin in there, just flying by, sipping a mai tai, watching the destruction below.
He's like, give me sympathy. My wife left me. Well, let's go the other way, Catfish. Is there a character in Rogue One who didn't appear in the Andor television show who you think, boy, if this Rogue One character had appeared in the Andor TV show, it would have made the show better? So it could have been somebody like our main character from the movie Jyn Erso or Galen Erso, her father, or Tarkin or Vader. Or would you have wanted to see Borgullet, the monster that can read into your mind to tell if you're lying or not in the movie? Any character from Rogue One who would have made Andor better?
Well, I have to be honest, and maybe this is just because, I did read that Tony Gilroy didn't want to throw people in there just to throw them in, but
No, yeah.
I don't see any. I mean, just for selfishness sake, because I love Mads Mikkelsen, I would have
Oh,
loved to
yeah.
have seen him, but how does he fit into that story? I don't really see how any of these
No.
fit into that story. Maybe only Tarkin, and as I've already said, I never want to see him again.
Well, we'll talk more about Tarkin later. I think you could have. Tarkin's mentioned a couple of times, so you could have shown him in the movie. I'm not sure that necessarily makes the film better, or excuse me, the series better by taking that movie character and put him in the series. The one, and maybe this is controversial, but the one thing
Mhm.
watching Rogue One again made me realize that if somehow you just started on Rogue One, or somehow you just started on Andor season 1 or 2, and you skip kind of the big Star Wars, signposts, Darth Vader as a character really comes out of nowhere. Jedi, this is what's so crazy. Jedi, in this film, Cassian says, "Oh, Kyber, isn't that what powered the Jedi's lightsaber?" Cassian had never mentioned the Jedi once in either season of Andor. So I think maybe you throw Vader in where, I don't know. It would have needed to be very lightly, but it could have
Mm.
been, like if somehow, this is me making it up off the top of my head. It's like our boy, one of our favorite characters, Partagaz, tells Dedra, listen, we've tried the fake Calcite. It doesn't work. Gorman's got to happen now. You could have had a scene where like she's like, okay, boss, I'll do it. And then you cut back to Partagaz and you see that Vader's right over his shoulder, kind of forcing him to say, hey, we're going on Gorman. I know that's not perfect, but I'm just thinking it's weird that they barely mentioned the Force, and they don't mention the Jedi in Andor 1 and 2. And if you watch those, the Force in Andor season 2 is introduced, and I think it does make a lot of sense. And certainly with Chirrut, that character, you understand, okay, this Force is fun, this is wonderful. But Vader really, if somehow, once again, you've been a cultural nomad and don't know all the most famous character in Star Wars, Darth Vader, I thought, well, maybe you help that person by saying, okay, there is this kind of muscle in the Empire so that when he shows up in Rogue One, it doesn't feel like he's showing up out of nowhere.
Well, that is a good point, and that is something that I missed. That you're right. That is sort of jarring from since and that Rogue One is picking up right after Andor. The kind of acceptance of the Jedi and the Force as anything other as an alternate health treatment.
Right, right, exactly. get in downward Jedi pose here at the yoga form.
All right, Bubba, here's another
what do
quick
you think?
question.
Oh, wait. You
Yep.
got another question? Let's hear it, Catfish.
I do. Okay, now we've seen Andor with 3 different partners.
Oh, wow.
Which of Andor's partners did he have the best chemistry with? Bix, Jin, or K2SO?
Wonderful question, because as much as anybody who watched the show and loves Bix, she and Andor really didn't have many scenes together in season 1. When we joined them in season 2, remember, Andor's kind of away for the first 3 episodes, so they're not really having a lot of scenes there. The main scenes between Bix and Cassian Andor are in the second arc of season 2. And even then they're away for a bit because he goes to Gorman. So boy, I think it's a wonderful question.
It's not just that. It's with Bix. I have to say, they only sort of very, very casually shipped Jin and Cassian with sort of knowing smiles, just as about to die. But at least they had smiles between them.
Yeah.
It all seemed like scenes from a marriage, scenes from a bad marriage every time we saw Cassian and Bix.
100% true. So I'm going to go, just because I think he's such a great character, I'm going to go with K2. I think the relationship is buddy, but kind of buddies who grovel with complain and kind of neg each other a bit. So I think his best relationship is with K2. What about you, Catfish? You asked the question. Who's Cassian got the best relationship with?
I'm gonna agree, simply because that must mean that we have a good relationship, since you're constantly negging me.
Now, Catfish, what is wonderful is, we have some double L's.
Mm-hmm. Loyal listeners.
Oh, man, you really got me there. Loyal listeners who we asked ahead of time. We said, hey, we're going to be watching Rogue One. You should give us your thoughts ahead of time. A true loyal listener, great commenter on YouTube, Shirley, wrote in and gave us this feedback, Catfish, not knowing you would ask this question. What did Shirley say?
Shirley said, I watched Rogue One again, and what a movie. Can't wait to hear how do you guys feel. But he has better chemistry with Jyn Erso. They're equals and learning to trust each other. Love Andor all the more. He wouldn't want the Death Star to exist, even if he knew about his child.
So she probably didn't assume K2 was one of the options. She came out and said Andor had better chemistry with Jyn than he does with Bix. Whoa.
You know what? I feel like I feel like I would get in trouble from some people if I had said that Bix and Andor weren't equals. They were both equally working towards the same thing. And also, Bix was converted to the cause more than like 4 hours ago, the way Jyn Erso has been.
But Jyn gives a great speech. She'll convert you to be on the team. Yeah. Okay.
It's like somebody who's been sober for 1 hour. Come on, guys.
That's the best amount you want to be sober, is 1 hour.
All right, Bubba. So here's the thing that stuck out to me, and this is a question you wrote, and you've taken this down a far more detailed path than I have, but I think I'm still more right. You said Andor says to when Jin's giving him a hard time, I've been in this fight since I was 6.
Yeah.
Now, how does this make sense?
That was a line in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Gilroy makes a series about Andor, and he makes a series which doesn't really validate that line, does it? Like, is he been couldn't have been in the fight with the Empire? The Empire, hasn't been around since he was 6. How do you fight the Empire, even if it had been around when you were 6? So you and I, we don't like to not mention, talk to each other before we podcast, but you had sent this to me about, like, is Andor a full of bull? Can he not count? When he said, I've been in this fight since I was 6. How does it make sense? Let me give up the ghost. I don't think it necessarily makes sense, but I would say, how could Cassian possibly validate this line in his own mind? Mm-hmm. So according to Wikipedia, Cassian Andor is 8 years younger than Anakin, aka Darth Vader. Therefore, he would have been born about a year before the movie The Phantom Menace came out. And and then Attack of the Clones is much later. So what happened between The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones? Well, the in-universe story is it was building up to this war between the Separatists and the Republic. These planets, these systems are like, hey, we don't want to be a part of the Republic anymore. Look at this mess that happened in The Phantom Menace. We want to not be a part of the Republic. We want to be our own thing. So it wasn't like a true, what we would consider an interplanetary war, but these planets leaving the Republic and the Republic saying, no, you can't, we've got to be a perfect union and together. There was like a lot of strife and, kind of mini battles around them. And theoretically, that is what happened to Cassian's homeworld of Kenari. Remember, he was born on this planet Kenari, which looked like it had been strip mined and it was polluted, right? And if you remember, when we saw young Casa on Kenari, there was a ship that crashed, and I'm pretty sure one of the people who came out and looked like they had been poisoned were wearing a separatist patch. And so the idea is that the battle between the planets that wanted to leave the Republic and the Republic trying to keep them in destroyed his world. Yeah, that could have happened when he was 6, and that they could have killed his parents, and he could have been left alone. Now, admittedly, that battle is not exactly the war of the war he's in now, but just to kind of go through his life. So he's 10 when Marva and Clem rescue him from Kenari, that planet. 1 year later is Attack of the Clones, when the official war between the Separatists and the Republic break out. Just 3 years later, the Republic wins and becomes the Empire when Cassian's 14. That's also when the Empire, those stormtroopers, kill his father on Rick's Road of Ferrix, or his adopted father, Clem. Andor Season 1 begins with Cassian as 28 years old, based on everything. Now, of course, you say Cassian was 28 in Season 1, and you look at Diego Luna, and yes, Diego Luna was 40, he was 40 years old when they were filming Season 1. The way this whole thing works is Cassian dies when he's 33 there on Scarif. So again, that's a whole lot more information than you want. I don't think it really connects, but if you were trying to say, well, I've been in this battle since I was 6, well, I've been in a war zone. I've been having to struggle since I was 6. How about that?
All right. So the math is completely unnecessary to this whole exercise.
Okay, sure.
Because Andor, the series, makes it clear that before he was enlisted by sweet, innocent Luthen, Andor was as much a rebel as Jin is at the beginning of Rogue One, which is to say, not a rebel at all, just a scavenging thief.
Right. I look out for number 1.
Yeah. And at the beginning of Andor, he cares even less for the rebellion than he does his sister, who he is not even trying to find.
Wait, he looked for his sister once. He didn't look for the rebellion once until it found him.
So really, he could say, I've been in the rebellion for, there was 3-year jump, since 6 years ago would make sense. Maybe 5.
I've been in, right. He said 6 years old. He just got messed up. I've been in this fight for 6 years.
Yeah.
Instead of you, 6 minutes, Jin.
But to me, besides which makes sense to me now, and I didn't think about it, the whole idea about him knowing a lot, being more aware of what the Force is.
Yeah.
This is the only thing that didn't make sense to me continuity-wise. I can't even make sense with Andor's personality of him saying this to someone to try to make them feel less than. He's not that kind of like bragger. Like he could be like, I would be more sense if he's like, yeah, I was like you, I didn't care, and then.
Well, wait a minute.
But I never gave speeches to other people.
Did you watch the cutscene on Disney Plus?
Oh,
he said, Jin, I've been in this since I was 6 years old. I rescued Mon Mothma from the Senate. Don't believe what Bail Organa tells you. What about the riot? What about the Gorman massacre? I was there. What do you think, Jin? While you were living it up in the penal planet, I was busy rescuing Bix on Ferrix. There you go. That's Cassian.
That's great. Now, Bubba, of course, what is everyone is always clamoring for?
Yep.
The Andor MFK. This is the Rogue One edition, Bubba. Yep. You've got to M, F, and K 3 people, or it could be the same person, depending on how kinky you get, that are in Rogue One.
Okay, here we go. You ready?
Yep.
Now, I've already said it multiple times on this podcast, how I am a double P Perrin pal. I support Perrin.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I could not marry Mon Mothma when she is still married to my boy Perrin. So I'm going to F Mon Mothma. Then you're like, well, who are you going to marry? There really aren't many choices here in Rogue One. But who will
No.
I marry? CGI Princess Leia. And you're like, why would
Ooh.
you marry her? Well, sometimes in relationships, your other significant other is disappointed with you and, frowns at you. But with CGI Princess Leia, I can just go into the software and make her smile.
Oh, perfect. You're pitching sort of this recent movie called Companion. Love
There you
it.
go. There you
Love it.
go.
The
And then
guy who
that means
reprogrammed the robot was definitely the good guy in that movie.
I do have to kill somebody.
Hmm.
And this is going to really, really, really hurt some people.
Yeah.
Who am I gonna kill?
Tell me.
Admiral Radis.
No.
Because he was in charge, he got the plans, he made sure the plans got to the blockade runner and Princess Leia, and he died, obviously. But I wanted all his lines. Form attack formation. Blah, blah, blah. Knock down the shield. Pull in the Corvette slammer. So I would kill a great character who I actually love, Admiral Radis. What about you, Catfish? As long as we do this offensive MFK every week, let's hear your your Rogue One MFK.
All right, Bubba. I'm definitely for sure gonna marry Chirrut, my good
Oh,
boy, Donnie Yen.
oh man.
Listen,
Yeah.
you never have to worry about anyone sneaking up on you.
No.
You could drop a plate, he would catch it before it hit the floor, even if he was 2 rooms away. I mean, you are completely safe with your boy around.
Now you say you're going to marry him. I got to be
Hmm.
honest, marriage a lot you want to have in-depth conversations with your significant other, with your spouse. But if his conversation is you're like, hey, honey, did you pay the gas bill? I'm one with the force and the force is, oh my gosh, come on.
That is true. You would have to ban certain phrases from
Right.
the house. Bubba, I had also a harder time with F.
Oh,
I
lovely
considered
Jan.
Mon. She
Okay.
looked good. Jin, again, she just irritates me, I guess, in this
Oh,
movie. Her transformation is
sure.
irritating. So I was just looking through IMDb
Okay.
and I caught Lyra Urso's picture, which I put in
Her
our
mom, her
discussion.
mother's character.
Yeah, yeah. That's all I have to say. If you look at her main picture on IMDb, I think you will agree with me. And
I
obviously, I'm
do.
gonna
Sadly, I
kill.
do.
I am gonna kill Moff.
What?
Please, sweet Jesus, I never want to see that face again. It haunts my dreams.
Okay, we'll talk more about Moth once we dive into the movie. But hey, there's
Yeah,
still a couple more things we got to do.
let's
Quick,
do
quick
it.
hits. Every episode of Cassian Andor that we've talked about here at the Parsec Passion Podcast, for reasons that I regret, and I created it, we talk about Cassian's sister of the week.
It's not your fault. It's the editor of the show. We discussed this last week.
So, where is Cassian's sister this week when we're watching Rogue One, Catfish?
All right. Well, listen, this is
Yeah,
one thing we didn't consider before.
yeah.
Cassian's sister, also part of the rebellion, but had to
Oh,
go deep undercover and had a very serious transformation.
sure.
That's right. Cassian killed his sister, Tivik.
Wait, his sister injured her arm climbing out of that Canary strip mine area.
Sorry, you might
Oh,
get captured.
no, there's only one place that his
Uh-huh.
sister is,
Tell me.
the post-credit scene.
Darn it.
She's in the post-credit scene with Bix and Cassian Jr., where she's like, hey, I survived. Where's my brother?
Oh, horrible, horrible.
Hey, that's our silliness. Do you have an answer to one of our quick questions or queries at Double PHQ social media on YouTube? Hey, we love hearing from you, talking to you. Please leave us a
We
comment.
do.
We want to know. If you are into our silliness here at Double P, later this year, we're going to be talking about Only Murders in the Building Season 5. Holy smokes. Martin Short and Steve
Wow.
Martin and Selena Gomez still
Still
going
alive.
strong. We are definitely going to be podcasting. We're definitely going to be considering podcasting about The Terror of the Devil in Silver, because we covered the first 2 seasons of the anthology show, The Terror. But we've asked you for some suggestions. We're going to read them in our feedback later on. And finally, let's talk quickly, Catfish, about some Star
Okay.
Wars news. The first thing is that exactly 1 year from us recording this podcast, one
Hmm.
year from now, It's the next live action Star Wars event, but it's not a Disney Plus TV show. It is a movie. It's The Mandalorian and Grogu's being released 1 year from now. That's going to be the next live action thing released. Currently, the only live action Star Wars television program that's been announced, that's filming, that's doing anything, is Ahsoka season 2, which is currently filming. Nothing else is on the plate. Nothing. They haven't announced anything else. So let's hear it.
Well, that's not, well, they haven't announced, but they haven't announced. The rumors just keep flying and flying around.
They do.
Well, a quick question.
Yeah.
Was the Mandalorian and Grogu movie, did they start to develop a TV show and then turn it into a movie?
You mean, was it going to be season 4 of The Mandalorian?
Correct.
That's what many people believe. These are big corporations. And when the corporation said, and Tony Gilroy talks about this, when streaming services started, like Netflix, nobody on Wall Street cared if you made a profit. They just cared if you were growing. Since Disney Plus launched and, the last several years, Wall Street is completely flipped. They want to see profits. And so Disney completely pivoted and said, we got to stop making Disney Plus shows, as many, because they only generate one source of revenue, subscriptions. We got to get back to making more movies, because then you can get box office, you could get maybe more toys and that kind of stuff. And so it is highly believed that the Mandalorian and Grogu movie was a story that they really intended to tell in Mandalorian season 4. There is no season 4 on the horizon. It's just this movie. So that is the thought.
Well, what's interesting is that Disney did the reverse with Moana 2, which was supposed to be a movie, and then they added
a streaming movie, right?
Added and padded and made it into a show. So, to not stellar reviews.
Aw. So let's hear it.
I know, it broke your heart. It broke your heart.
Let's hear it, listeners. Let's hear it, everybody else. Star Wars, it is working on more shows. They will get announced sooner or later, but if you were in charge of Lucasfilm and could make a Star Wars TV show, what would it be? I'll go ahead and say what I would like, in that I like the fun, light, more younger focused stuff like Skeleton Crew. I also love Andor, because I'm the age I am. If I could make one show happen, I would get a team. I'd give Tony Gilroy a break and then say, hey, we've got a great actress in Genevieve O'Reilly who plays Mon Mothma. There is what I think could be great drama in trying to build a republic after a galactic civil war, and the struggles from both inside the government and outside the government of, how do you build a government? And so my show would be a Mon Mothma show based around her, because she is the leader post Return of the Jedi. She is the leader of the galaxy in this Mandalorian and Grogu time frame. But I would say, let's make a show right then, or maybe a year later, where you're like, how do you make a government work after all these people have been fighting each other for years? And so I think there could be great drama there. That's my pitch for a show. Catfish, you got a pitch, or what do you think?
Well, one of the things that was rumored that sounded good to me was something set like 1,000 years before Star Wars. But in that, and who was the filmmaker that was associated with that? It was somebody good.
Right. I'm of course completely blanking on who it is right now, but you're right. The Dawn of the Jedi is his film, and I'll Google it real quick why do you like that idea?
They really feels like they have milked the events surrounding this, and because they did the prequel trilogy and the sequel trilogy, this is just really tough. Like, if you're gonna have something that is before the sequel trilogy, you're still kind of confined.
Well, they were confined in Andor. No, I get that.
They were confined in Andor, but I mean, it's a very just a specialized show. So
100%. Well, the person who is still attached to making a film version of that is, of course, James Mangold, known for Walk the Line, Logan. So many people loved that take on the X-Men character, 3:10 to Yuma. He's done an awful lot, and the last thing he did, which of course everybody loved, was A Complete Unknown, the Bob Dylan.
Oh yeah. How about A Complete Unknown Star Wars style. Someone just going
Oh,
around the
there you go.
galaxy
Hey,
singing.
Max Rebo. Here,
Yeah.
here.
Oscar Reef. The New Year.
Listeners, what do you want the next Star Wars live action television show to be? Obviously, Ahsoka season 2 is coming. Finally, Catfish,
Yep.
because we are introducing Tony Gilroy and is a way to get into him and his involvement in Rogue One, I thought first and foremost that we should talk about his thoughts now that he's wrapping up Andor. And I love mentioning Partagaz. And so Tony Gilroy said this recently on a podcast, and I want to see if you agree. Tony Gilroy said, I wish I could write forever for the actor Anton Lesser, who plays Partagaz.
Yes.
We did a WGA, Writers Guild of America, call earlier this morning, and I said there should be a separate award every year for the actor who does the most heavy lifting of exposition without showing it. The WGA should give an award to the actor, and I would nominate Anton Lesser. It should be called the Partagaz Award. Go back and do a supercut of what that guy does over 2 seasons. This is Tony Gilroy's words. He's carrying so much pipe, and it's just so much fun. You can't get enough of it. That guy is absolutely fantastic. Low maintenance, high yield.
I would love to watch a supercut, keeping in mind that Tony Gilroy says he's carried a lot of exposition. It is so delightful. It's not as if you're being led, you're being led down a path. You are just like inhaling it,
Yep.
just like the special gases that our boy inhales.
Bad luck, Gorman. Award. So let's talk about as we get into our breakdown of Rogue One. So
Let's do it.
The way the story is told is that Disney reached out. Disney loved Gareth Edwards, the director who had made that Godzilla film, which so many people had strong feelings about. And so they said, hey, do you want to make a Star Wars movie? And they had an idea pitched to them, which they had loved, about, hey, stealing the first Death Star plans. They thought, oh, that's a good idea. And the pitch actually goes back to when Lucas himself was going to do a Star Wars TV show. We'll ignore that. So they're like, hey, Gareth Edwards, do you want to make this? And so Gareth Edwards says, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. He works with a handful of writers. He named Scarif after what a Starbucks vendor wrote on his cup one day. They're like, what's your name? And he said, Gareth. And so they wrote on his cup Scarif. And he was like, that's a good name for a Star Wars planet. But they wrote this script and then they showed it to Tony Gilroy. And Tony Gilroy's like, boy, this script is kind of messy. But he was way too busy at the time. So they went with, I believe, Chris Weiss. Let me fix that in a minute, who's written a lot of films like About a Boy and that kind of stuff. And then they started shooting. And they had always planned to do reshoots. But after they did principal photography and they saw a rough cut of the movie, they were like, oh boy, this is a big mess. And they went back to Tony Gilroy, who theoretically was free at this time. And he rewrote a lot of the beginning and rewrote a lot of the ending. And he was really happy with it. They were really happy that he made the film, in their opinion, so much better. And that's how we get to Rogue One. Catfish, do you watch this and tell that it kind of probably had about 30% of it redone in reshoots and rewritten and re-sculpted in reshoots? Can you tell?
No, I couldn't tell. The only thing that sticks out like a sore thumb is Jin's ultra radicalization.
Yeah, and that feels like that was always a part of it. That really, this movie doesn't make sense if she wasn't always going to be like, yeah, let's go and get the plans that my dad left me.
Yeah.
So let's dive into the film. This flashback theoretically was always there, and it begins with a flashback of young Jyn Erso. And I think if you're watching this post Andor, isn't her life Kleya's? So Kleya in Andor, her parents are killed. She gets adopted. She's an orphan alone at a very young age. She gets picked up by this guy, Luthen, and gets brought up, kind of without any parents as a troublemaker rebellion. What is Jyn Erso in this movie? Her dad isn't killed. Her mom is killed, but she's pretty much orphaned and picked up by a member of the rebellion, not Luthen this time, but Saw Gerrera. And then I thought, well, wait a minute. Cassian is pretty much an orphan picked up by Marva and Clem, and Marva and Clem aren't necessarily part of the rebellion, but Marva wants to, Marva hates the Empire. So all these characters are kind of similar. Who got the best foster parent, Catfish? Kleya with Luthen, Jyn Erso with Saw Gerrera, or Cassian with Marva and Clem? Who you got?
Well, I mean, I think it shows in the end results, right? I mean, Kleya is put together. She's got it all happening.
Yep.
She can take a mofo out. She's cool under pressure.
Yes.
Meanwhile, Jin is
In prison.
when we first see her at the beginning of the movie, she's suffering from having to witness a lot of drug use among her parental figure when she's young.
Right.
Cassian sort of also at odds. I think it definitely it's Kleya to be
All
brought
right.
up by someone who can smile in so many frightening ways.
I think Marva and Clem. I don't know. I mean, what happened to Clem would radicalize and make you miserable and maybe make you maybe a bit nihilist, like Cassian is at the beginning, like I'm all that matters. If the Empire can just come and, string up my dad on Rick's Road, sure, maybe I don't care. So I'm going to say Cassian with Marva and Clem, R.I.P. Clem, it had the best parents. Anything you liked or had thoughts about this opening flashback to young Jin, seeing her dad stolen away from her and her mom?
Well, I'm going to cover it later, but already we're starting the movie with some what I like to call double Ks.
Uh-oh, double gaze?
Yeah, classic Krennic lines.
Oh, that's true. 100%. Ben Mendelsohn, Chef's Kiss, so good.
So beautiful in this.
So we jump forward in time, Catfish, and
Mhm.
let's get to what is rumored to be a Tony Gilroy edition, and that's the first scene with Cassian Andor. Tony Gilroy was brought in to fix it, and he said, all these characters are going to die with the end, so it's got to be about sacrifice. What are you willing to do for the rebellion? And so theoretically, he created this script of Cassian meeting Tivik and shooting the informant in the back. Now,
It
how
is
did
so beautiful that we go right from the end of this and to see Cassian's complete transformation into Luthen,
yes,
because there are two people sitting in hell comparing notes, and that is Lonnie and Tivik. They're
right,
like, how did we get here?
they both give information about the Death Star, and for doing the good deed, they get shot. Tivik got it in the back.
Yeah,
Lonnie, based on the burn, probably got it in the front. Good work, guys. You really saved the galaxy with that. Now,
just a beautiful after watching Lonnie and Luthen, just beautiful to see it with Cassian, and interesting because after having seen Rogue One already, like once you get to the end of the movie, you have certain feelings about Cassian, but I
mhm.
wonder if I had different feelings at the beginning of the movie, seeing him shoot somebody in cold blood without knowing him was a really interesting choice for a Star Wars movie.
Tony Gilroy, adding his kind of more mature adult ideas into a Star Wars film, if the rumors are true. I should point out that in a lot of ways, Tivik is giving the information that Tivik and Lonnie's information is almost the same. Tivik does say it's a planet killer, which they didn't get from Lonnie,
Right.
but it's a fun little kind of backwards thing that works is that Cassian was just told about Galen Erso. He goes to meet Tivik. Tivik's talking about the same, he mentions Urso, and Cassian's like, Galen Urso? And so it's like, you're almost like a journalist. It's got to be confirmed by two different
Right,
independent
right,
sources,
right.
and it was.
Exactly. If there's any doubt behind this sitting on their thumbs
Oh, yeah.
council, this is going to shake them out of their comfortable shoes.
Now, the next scene up is another one rumored to have from Tony Gilroy's rewrite. And it's a real brief scene, but it's Bodhi Rook. He's in custody of Saw Gerrera's fighters. He comes up to our boy Two Tubes and he's like, "Are you Saw? I wasn't expecting you to look like this. Hey, I just defected. Galen Erso sent me to you, Saw. Let me tell you what I want." But they kind of don't trust him. It's kind of tough to tell because he's so beat up, but he is in Imperial garb. So they throw a bag on his head and pull him away.
I'm just
Any
not even sure. I'm not, how could this be a scene that was added later? What are we
when it
just
looks
gonna
like it was shot in the Jordan Desert? Yeah, that's a good
well,
question.
not just that, how could it be added later when like this is completely necessary. The very next scene we see Bodhi like it's it's been kind of set up by this scene and other scenes around him. It seems like you couldn't not have this
Well,
scene.
they're based on this is me trying to put together, stuff which has never come out. Nobody's come out and said this is definitely what happens. Tony Gilroy recently has come out and said, yeah, Rogue One was in rough shape. It was in rough shape. Like there was nothing you could do but make it better. Like he's been kind of cold on the script that he came in and fixed. But there were even rumors back then that Bodhi's actual role keep kind of changed a bit. And so there's a chance that okay, I'm this kind of jittery Imperial pilot defecting. There's a chance that that is all new from Tony Gilroy. So,
Well, then we have Jin getting broken out of prison. And again, I want to save all these lines for later. So good. K2SO comes in.
K2SO, so good. I talk about the beginning of the movie. I've always thought is the weakest part of it. But Alan Tudyk and K2SO, wonderful, wonderful. Now you wonder, wait a minute, where's Cassian? He and K2 should always be together. But Cassian was probably like, I'm a bit beat up from having shot Tivik. You go on your own and rip this girl out of prison, buddy.
He's like, wait, do I get a chance to kill this one? No? Okay, I'll stay home.
So, Catfish, let's jump to Yavin and talk about, since this is all about post Andor, you can tell pretty much on all of these characters that they're actually younger than they were. Let's go first with Diego Luna himself, the actor playing Cassian Andor. Did it distract you at all that he is, if you really pay attention, noticeably younger in this than he was in season 2 of Andor?
It didn't really. He's always been kind of a scruffy pretty boy.
Yeah.
So it really didn't knock me that much back. But it was funny because it was like when I saw Mon, it was more like, oh, this is like the latter day, like last few years we've had of good age smoothing. It really
Yep.
looks like she's just been age smoothed. It did make me like her a little bit more. I think you know what I mean. But what the funny thing I noticed about Yavin is
Yeah.
that, and again, maybe this is just I'm bringing my thoughts about the movie in, but somehow all of a sudden, even though it's right afterwards, somehow Yavin looks a little less grungy than it did, a little bit more put together than it did in Andor.
Yeah, I could say that. A lot of times in Andor, it's what they call a spark factory. Oh, but people are always welding on Yavin, and here not so much. I completely agree with you. And I just want to say, I've already said I want a TV show starring this actress Genevieve O'Reilly. I think she's great, but to me, you can kind of tell, boy, what are you drinking there on Yavin to get so much younger? I'll give me some of that. The rebel leadership when we last saw them, they were real kind of iffy about do we want to believe this Empire super weapon? In this, they're maybe it's the we you would have to assume Tivik corroborating it. People are like, let's go, yeah, let's investigate this, let's do it.
Yeah,
We got to get to Saw.
they're a little bit suspicious. Also, Cassian is introduced as
Yes.
a rebel intelligence captain.
Hello.
Whoa, this is a big, as Beyonce would say, upgrade, upgrade.
Well, once again, the cut scene was so great. Draven introduces him. This is Captain Andor, our rebel intelligence captain, who was recently confined to quarters yesterday. But we won't talk about that now.
Right, he was an admiral the day before. What do these mean? Nothing. You don't get any extra pay, nothing. We just took one of his stars back.
I thought one of the things, I do like consistency. So they're like, okay, investigate this. You have a connection to Saw Gerrera, Jin. We're going to take you to Saw in Jeddah. And so naturally, the ship takes off, and its takeoff was very similar. I mean, it was a very consistent look of like, okay, we're on this Yavin 4. It's the fourth moon of Yavin, and this gas giant. That shot was so close to the shot of the same ship when it rocketed off of Yavin to go rescue Kleya. I thought, boy, those things, this is good. They really did it really well. Bail Organa, you kind of look different, but the planets of the spaceship, you guys look the same. We go to Jeddah, and this is our first real look at the present day Saw Gerrera.
And we love the
oh boy.
huffing from
Oh,
him. Now we
keep
know what's
huffing,
going
baby.
down. what's going down? He's like, you know what? I can't just go. I just can't. I've got to have this on tap at all times.
Right. It's when you want the tap, when you're literally carrying a keg, because you always have to
Yes,
get a
yes,
little feel
yes.
for it. But my thing in the notes are, so where are your feet at, man? You've lost both of your feet. Are there any drugs that make you lose body parts? Because this stuff he's huffing, not do good, Catfish.
I completely forgot about that, and they did not bring that up at all in Andor. I don't know. It was really
Well, he
weird.
had feet. I'm pretty sure the last time we saw a full body shot of him in Andor, he had what we would call our human feet. And so I'm not saying that this drug that he's addicted to is not
Hmm.
good for your circulation and may to
Oh, got it, got it, got it, got
amputate
it.
your
It gave him the
footies.
gave him the diabetes.
I'm just saying, what happened to him? Now he has, and this is one thing that, in hindsight, Saw is so fun. You watch Rogue One originally, and he is Colonel Kurtz. He's this guy who's been in the jungle too long, who's been in the battle too long, and he's nuts. But with Andor, I really love him in this. And
Oh yeah.
I even love Borgullet will know the truth. So Borgullet, as we say, is this kind of octopus type land alien that will put its tentacles up against you and know if you're telling the truth or not. So
Now,
any
slight
yeah,
downside, Bubba,
yeah,
is that you may not come out entirely sane at the end of the process.
no loss. Come
Okay,
on.
got it, got it,
Walk
got
it
it.
off. Is there any character in the film or in Andor, Catfish, who you wish, oh, I wish I could have put him up to Borgullet to learn the truth?
Ted
Like,
Cruz. I just
what,
wanted to
that
say
would be cruel to Borgullet.
all these suckers, I'm sucker them completely.
I was going to say, Ted Cruz would be cruel to Borgullet. I'd feel sorry for it then. I was thinking, well, you were like, well, how does Dedra really feel about Cyril? We need to Borgullet her and say, how did you feel about Cyril Card? That kind of stuff. Yeah, I kind of loved it all the time, but now I love Saw, and he can't be crazy enough. And that gets us to Krennic, and rather than acting opposite any kind of other human characters, Krennic, for the most part, is opposite a CGI Grand Moff Tarkin and Darth Vader in a mask. So let's get to it. Tarkin, who I want to say real quickly, I loved Peter Cushing in the original Star Wars. I just thought he was great. I thought he was wonderful. I thought that actor was wonderful. He was obviously in the old Hammer horror films, I'm going to say the 50s, maybe even earlier. And that actor himself, you know, because Star Wars went on to have sequels and stuff and be such a big machine, Peter Cushing, before he died, he was like, oh, it was always too bad that my character got killed off in Star Wars A New Hope because he had fun making the movie and being in a big blockbuster
Mhm.
success. And so this was what they did to him. Anything else you want to say about CGI Grand Moff Tarkin Catfish?
I would just say this, obviously they wanted to bring some people back in ways that were completely not worthwhile and were disconcerting. I would think if Tony Gilroy had his druthers now, he would be like, "We'll just come up with somebody else. We don't need Moff Tarkin here."
Certainly, or at the very least, I remember, people don't like this technology. In some ways, I think back to remember that Mummy movie where there was a CGI version of The Rock in it and it was terrible. And this was a big step up from that. Like, this wasn't exactly great when Rogue One came out. Like, we all knew it was
Mm-mm.
kind of bad then. But in hindsight, it's so much worse. But I say, if I look at the Mark Hamill, the Luke Skywalker they did in season 2 of The Mandalorian, if that's the improvement, I think you could have done in Andor a better. There's no way you could have done a worse version of Grand Moff Tarkin. And it's if when he's still, like if you watch a still image, it's not so bad. It's the movement. For me, it's right around the corners of the eyes and the corner of the
Mm,
mouth
mm,
where
mm.
the character really doesn't work. That said, I do love some of the lines he spits at Krennic. He's like, listen, this thing's got to work. Wen has become now Director Krennic. Get this thing working. And I love that.
And Krennic, but you got to give it to Krennic. He's still got his high opinion of himself. He's like, fine, I'm ready to take down the whole planet. And but
Oh yeah,
Tarkin's
yeah,
like,
wait.
"Nah, that's too much."
Yeah, come on, let's not go crazy. If this
Yeah,
is the
yeah.
very first thing you're going to turn it on, let's not turn it on high for the first thing. And later on, we'll jump ahead just so we can keep talking about these two characters. Once Tarkin sees it, he's like, "Oh, snap. Your microwave can do that?"
Office politics. Guess who's in charge of the successful project?
Right.
Me.
Tarkin says he's taking control because he's naming the security breaches. Now, of course, in the film, he means Bodhi Rook defecting, but I heard it now watching it post Andor. He's like, I'm taking control because of all the security breaches. I'm thinking, oh man, Lonnie screwed you out of your job, critic. I love it.
All right, so Jeddah City not doing well.
No.
Outer Jeddah also not doing that well, but Jin, she wakes up after a dream of remembering her life with her parents on
Yeah.
Coruscant.
Yeah.
So this is a flashback even further, although it
Yeah.
makes it seem like really this was maybe just a year before her first flashback. Galen's in the Imperial military. They're
Mhm.
Krennic is there. They're all buddy buddy.
Yeah, it was almost like this is a happy life for us.
Mm-hmm,
Hmm.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Now, uh, Jin wakes up and they're landing on Jeddah. And this is the first of what Tony Gilroy has now kind of said was things he did around story killers. So if you wonder, wait, they're making a Cassian Andor show and they're not going to introduce K2SO until the end of the fourth of from the end episode, why would you not bring K2SO? He's the greatest thing in Rogue One. Why not bring him in? Well, according to Tony Gilroy, when he was rewriting this Rogue One script, he would always have to come up with reasons to get rid of K2SO, and he called the character a story killer. And so he was like, look at the number of times in the film where I'm like, K2, you stay behind on the ship, or you go do this, because he thought K2 killed the story. Now, he never explains exactly why he thinks K2 killed the story. So, in my own head, I'm thinking, is it that he thinks that K2 is too powerful? Like this droid, like if your heroes are ever in trouble, well, K2 can just smash somebody to bits. You know what I mean? Or is it possible?
Many somebodies.
Yeah, exactly. Or is it possible that he's like, well, I want Cassian to go, secretly undercover into Jeddah City. Well, how's he going to be secretly undercover when he's walking around with this giant KX droid? So, any thoughts you have,
Well, I
Catfish, on
think
why?
I think it is because he is overpowered. I
Yeah.
mean, look what Tony Gilroy did himself when his characters were in seemingly unsavable straits in the apartment. K2SO comes out, kills many droids
Yep.
like him and plenty other people. So he is definitely too powerful. The other thing, I mean, he's a story killer, but also he's kind of a I mean, considering all the stuff he's left out of, the Mandolicious lines, K2SO has a lot of them, even some that I didn't even cut out. So it's almost like this character is so good, he can kind of dominate your attention too, and
Okay.
you don't want that.
Okay. Well, I think that's actually a brilliant point, Catfish. So here, once they've arrived on Jeddah, is the first time it's like, K2, you stay with the ship. And they go into the city. And here in the city, we get the infamous rebellions are built on hope thing. Jin's like, what are you doing?
Ridiculous,
Well, no, not
inspirational.
Cassian. Always give credit. That is shameful. He didn't say rebellions are built on hope. I was told this one time by this bellhop on Gorman. I love it. I love, that line does now have even more significance based on the show Andor. So I love that.
Right. And so now there is an attack.
Yep.
This is what Mon Mothma and the council were complaining about in Andor, and also here they try to reason with him. No, there a crackdown there because he keeps attacking all the shipments, and now he has his people do it, not himself.
No.
He's too chicken shit.
Hey,
Not himself,
Shaw
but
didn't
he
do it.
has his boys do it. And so, in order to save some other people, Cassian shoots one of Saw's fighters, so
Yep.
we know that's going to be trouble. And
Hmm.
then we see K2 get shot. No, it wasn't K2, it was somebody else. But K2 says after seeing it, "Did you know that wasn't me?"
Oh man, so good. And so, Catfish, you are right. Like, what's one thing's funny is they keep calling Saw Gerrera a radical, and you kind of have to pay attention. But his troops who are attacking the Empire, we don't mind that. But they were like a lot of innocent people were going to get caught in the crossfire. Jin has to save a little girl who was about to get caught in the crossfire because
Yeah, they don't
Saw
care.
doesn't care. He's like, let me kill these people. Let me get this Kyber. During this, we get introduced to these two new characters. Chirrut, who is our blind badass, who's as
Hmm.
good as K2. Like, if you're in trouble,
Absolutely.
get these two on your side. You're not going to be in trouble
That's it. It's
anymore.
over.
And then Chirrut's best friend, Baze, who, well, it's like, what is it? Speak softly and carry a big stick. Carry a blaster with a power pack on your back, and you can be good. So what's funny is Catfish K2 comes there and he, grabs a grenade, he throws a grenade, gets them out of trouble with stormtroopers. And what does Tony Gilroy do? He says, "Go back to the ship, K2." So that's the second time on Jeddah. He's like, "Hey, yeah, you're too
Well, I
much
mean,
trouble."
again, he could have saved them from all the trouble they needed to be in because again, Saw's troops saw what was happening, so they get taken. But
Yep.
by the way, Bubba, that
Yep.
is what we like to call problem solved. They wanted to meet Saw, they're going
Oh
to get to meet
man.
Saw.
Yeah.
This is the best way to meet Saw is to get captured and have your life put in danger.
So you're saying kill one of his soldiers is the best way to be.
Do whatever you need to
It
get
worked.
captured
It
by
worked.
Saw.
So they do get captured. They get brought to Saw's
Congratulations.
fortress. They get put, everybody but Jin gets put in little cells. And here's the thing people talk about. Chirrut and Baze are like, oh my God. We've been in worse cages than this. It's no big deal that we've been put in a cage. But Cassian says, this is the first for me. And everybody online is like, what do you mean this is the first for you? You were in Narkina 5. Chirrut says to him, there was more than one sort of prison, Captain. I sense that you carry yours wherever you go.
Hmm.
So what do you, Catfish, does that break continuity that they're in a
I
cell? They're
guess it
not
does.
really in a prison.
Yeah, it kind of breaks continuity,
Okay.
but that's all right. I'll accept it.
Listeners, what do you think? Is this, kind of throwaway line? He says this is a first for me. It could be this is the first time I've been arrested on Jeddah. I've been arrested on Neamos. I've been arrested everywhere, baby. Outside the
Uh,
prison. Oh, sorry.
mhm.
I was
Well, I
going to
was
say,
just going to say, because we have Saw and Jin getting back together. The last
yep,
time we saw Saw and Jin together, he was presumably rescuing her
yep,
and bringing her up. There was a little bit of confusion there because they talk. She's like, "You left me behind," but you infer that that was much later. But
yeah,
nonetheless, it's a little sticky in this area. It really feels like there could have been a little bit more backstory between Saw and Jin, but we're
no,
just
I
gonna
agree.
like have a few lines and then we're just gonna move on with our life.
But let me ask you this. Saw
Mhm.
implies that, listen, people were going to use you as a hostage. I left you behind. I did leave you behind, but that way, by being associated with me, you would never be in a situation that you could be taken as a hostage. Is that who's in the right here? Is Jin right? Like I
I,
was, if she was younger, that means she was, let's be honest, she was a teenager, and that's not cool to just leave a teenager
yeah,
behind.
no, no,
But is
it's
Saw
not.
right that you're always when you're with me, rebel number one at the time,
I think
you
he's
could be
been
in
huffing a
danger.
little bit too much Rito there.
Saw realizes real quick, it's a trap. Well, he doesn't say it the classic way, but he realizes that they're in deep doo when the Death Star is tested. We don't talk about action too much, but this is almost not even action. It is action, but it's a disaster movie. K2 with the classic line, the problem with the horizon, there's no horizon. We're in trouble. And Saw stays behind. Like, I know he couldn't exactly be fast with his no feet, but is that how you want to go out, Catfish, with not fighting back in this particular instance?
I mean, I get it's funny because he's caused so much trouble and is so kind of a renegade. It is kind of surprising that he just gives up the ghost here.
Yeah.
you know what is actually really funny here is if you had asked me before I rewatched Rogue One how much Saw Gerrera was in the movie,
Hmm.
I would have guessed easily 2 or 3 times as much as
Oh
he is.
yeah, it's 100% true.
So anyway, look, we got what we needed. Saw's dead. We picked up Bodhi. We got a crew now.
Yep.
So it's off to kill Jin's dad. That's the assignment he's been given. That's what our boy Ip Man, even though he says he's not going to, Ip Man is one with the Force and the Force is one with him. So he
Yep.
understands that is what's going to happen. So he's like, I'm just gonna go. I gotta check some stuff out. I'm just gonna go
Look,
check out some stuff.
we've crashed here.
Mhm.
This spaceship will never fly again. You guys hang out here while I go to check things out.
So he
Eh,
gets there. It's super rainy. There's rain in his eyes,
Yep.
and yet we see our boy Krennic there is what I want to call inspiring the troops basically. But Andor does not take the shot.
This is just like Gorman, Catfish. He didn't take the shot at Dedra on Gorman.
Well, it's surprising that he goes from not taking the shot to taking the shot, aka Tivik, R.I.P. Cassian's
Yeah.
sister, and but then does not take it here. And boy, let me tell you something. There is a lot that happens in a short period of time
There
here.
is.
Just when he decides, oh, maybe I don't want to take the shot, all of a sudden he's distracted by someone climbing up the side of the landing pad, and it's Jyn Erso. Holy cow. And then Krennic is like, hey, listen,
Right. I lost the
somebody
Death Star because of security lapses.
somebody spilled the beans.
Yep.
Who spilled the beans? And he's like, well, listen, if no one's going to answer, I'll just kill everybody to make sure. Our boy Galen
Yeah.
tries to take credit for it. Krennic decides to kill all the other guys instead. And in the meantime, for reasons which I can't remember now, since it's been a week and a half, everybody at camp decides, look, now is not the time to protect ourselves. Let's go out there full bore and just attack the crap out of this, the crap out of this location on Edu. So of course, the rebels attack, kills Galen.
Yeah. This is
Horrible.
so crazy. The Empire and Krennic killed every scientist but her dad. Who killed her dad? The rebellion.
Horrible, horrible. And of
Bad
course,
luck. Bad luck.
Jin claims now that Cassian was going to kill her dad. There's no proof. There's no proof of that.
I'm mad at you. You were gonna kill my dad, but didn't. Wait, what? No, I mean, but your buddies did. Your rebellion did. She did get to. Let's give her due. She did get a moment with her dad, the dad who was stolen away from her at the end. She did
Hmm.
get a moment with her dad. Her dad told her, like, listen, this thing's got to be destroyed. And so if you're like, how can Jin have such whiplash when she's like, you didn't tell me you were coming to kill my dad. All your friends killed my dad. To a couple minutes later, rebellions are built on hope. I hope you do
Yeah,
a
right,
better
right.
job of destroying the Death Star than you did of killing my dad.
Well, but also what's really great about this point is
Yeah.
she shows up and he's able to give her exactly the information she needs.
Yep.
End of movie. Oh no, wait a
Wait.
second. There's a whole lot of hoops to jump through. Essentially, her meeting her dad doesn't really help, except he's like, there's info here.
Here's a quest. Now I want to point out while this is happening, Chirrut and Baze have left the ship. They're out, kind of trying to take down the TIE fighters and help the rebellion. You see Bodhi sneak off because they need a new spaceship now. Number three, our third time, Tony Gilroy leaves K2 alone. Everybody else like has a mission. If you're Cassian and your job was to kill Galen, couldn't K2 have done a good job? You know, he would have walked right into the base. Nobody looks different because he's an Imperial
Boom.
droid, but instead he gets left on the ship.
Overpowered.
Now, I love K2, Maybe I want an overpowered show. Give me a K2, Adventures of K2. All I do is make quips and kick ass. That's my show, K2. Let's go. We see Krennic, who's sick of talking to CGI Darkin, go to talk to masked Vader. We visit Mustafar Catfish. Krennic, and we have to come up for a reason. Why is Krennic gone to Darth Vader? Well, he's like, who's in good with the Emperor? So he goes to.
What I love about this is, again, the office politics.
Yeah.
No one is ever like, hey, listen, you're my boss. Are you happy with me? They're like to your boss, does your boss know how well I'm doing? Have you told your boss how well I'm doing?
Director Krennic, I've been looking at your goals for this season. You're going for the quarter, and you're not doing well. Yeah, so Vader, and this is so interesting. We've talked about how back then they could only do Tarkin so well. A couple of years later, because technology improves, now they can do better deep fakes of Luke Skywalker. Back then, they used James Earl Jones's real voice, and you can kind of hear his age in Vader talking. But nowadays, in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, what they did is they used technology to kind of make Vader say lines. It wasn't James Earl Jones in a booth. They took earlier James Earl Jones lines and used that in technology to build him saying lines. And so you can't hear the age in it. Any thoughts about Krennic? Really, my boss's boss is not too, he's like, okay, my boss Tarkin just took the project from me. Let me go to the Emperor's good buddy. He's not happy with me either. Should Krennic quit while he's behind? What are your thoughts here, Catfish?
Krennic should just go oversee another planet. Maybe he should go to the station orbiting the remains of Gore.
Oh, there you go. Right. So the movie,
but they say, Bubba,
what?
They say climbers got to climb, just like Dedra. Krennic can't stop, won't stop.
No, I want the credit. Now, back on Yavin 4, we get a giant group of rebel leaders all together. This one rebel leader who is known as Senator Pamlo, she's the woman who wears kind of the shawl on the top of her head. She was a buzzkill in Andor, like, why should we do this? Why do we believe it? Guess what? Here, she's saying, you know what? We're doomed. Let's scatter the fleet. We can't. There's an all-hands meeting, Catfish. Everybody in this all-hands meeting gets to give their input. Like, everybody gets to give their input, including a criminal we just broke out of jail a couple of days ago, Jin. Where is Cassian when this meeting's happening? I'm going to imagine he's watering his plants. What do you think, Catfish? What do you think of this meeting?
He's been banished to the cell with K2SO. This is just...
Now, Jin says the line, Catfish. She says the line, rebellions are built on hope. She doesn't credit Cassian. Cassian didn't credit the bellhop. The bellhop's words are echoing through history.
Again, this is somebody who's like 10 minutes sober, preaching how everyone needs to stay away from the perils of alcohol, and everybody else going, oh my God, you're completely right. How could I have not seen it before?
All right,
why is my faith not as strong as yours?
Let me sell it to you this way, though. How about this? I don't agree. I'm just saying it as an argument.
Yeah.
If your dad kind of had a dying wish, and his dying wish was, listen, you gotta get these plans. You gotta blow this up. I made it so you can blow it up. That's a good reason for a last minute conversion, I would say.
Okay, I will say that, and I'm not disagreeing with you. I didn't see the moment where she's like, even help us with music or something, where she's like, all of a sudden she realizes like everything's been pointless till now, and she really needs to fight the rebellion. Also, I think there's a big difference between saying to someone, I finally believe and understand, and making a speech to them where she implies they're not as devout believers as she is.
Listen,
that's how it comes off.
I was just named Rebel Intelligence Captain. Now, how about this? A character.
What have you guys been doing with your last 10 minutes? Because I tell you what I've been doing.
Have you been
I've been believing in this rebellion.
Well, okay, how about this? I've said too many times on this podcast, I love Mon Mothma. She is given like the final word. word. And she says, if we don't have like a quorum, if we can't get full approval, we're not going to fight. We're not going to go to Jeddah. We're not going to do it. That's kind of a
Right. And
rough,
then
rough
once
look for Mon
again,
Mothma.
as he's done like 4 or 5 times now, this is another thing that's maybe a continuity issue. At a certain point, someone has to realize, look, we need to disable all thumbprint pads on any of our ships for Andor. But instead, he's get inspired,
Yes,
inspired
he
by
is.
Jin's faith.
Cassian is,
He
yeah.
says, we're all gonna do this together because we believe this is a little hokey. Somehow it doesn't come off as earned as it should, and I don't know why, but it's pretty much like, all right, well, we're gonna do it because hashtag reasons.
Now, when Cassian's doing this, you see these group of rebels behind him. Very blurry. It's not actually his first time in the film, but this is the first good look we have at Melshi, who we
Hmm.
met in season 1 on Narkina 5 as one of the prisoners. We saw him rescue Kleya. Melshi is here at Catfish. We're saying to hell with orders. We're gonna go do it. And I keep thinking the rebel leadership is terrible. They don't realize what's happening on their own base. This is crazy.
Bubba, they just had one of
Crazy.
their real long in-person conference
Yeah,
calls, and they
right.
all got to take naps.
No, it's very hot. It's humid heat too, the worst. They fly, and this is where the film, to me, earns that 8.5 out of 10. Scarif and everything there is incredible. I'll talk briefly about one of the things Tony Gilroy did at the end is that originally the way this had to work is that K2, Jin, and Cassian had to sneak in, get the plans. Then they had to go back out, and the transmitting them to the rebels was like outside on the beach in the middle of the fighting somewhere. That's why in the trailers you see shots of Jin and Cassian running on the beach, amongst the palm trees, dodging blaster fire. Why? Because they originally went in to get the plans, then had to get out and kind of get in the melee to get the plans out. And one of the things Tony Gilroy kind of said is, this is kind of too messy. Why not just have them the way you get the plans out is there in the building they're in, so that way you don't have, like you can immediately get to them trying to send the plans out rather than, okay, we got in, get the plans, now we got to get out. There are even shots of them running in the Imperial base there on Scarif. And so Tony
Now,
Gilroy
Bubba,
thought he just cleaned it up a bit. What do you think?
well, I think that's great. What you failed to mention is the
Yeah, I'm worried.
look.
Okay, yes.
Well, no, 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 don't be worried.
Okay.
It's that Cassian in this show and a lot in Andor has been like, don't go off by yourself. Don't go off by yourself. A bunch of people, we're building this rebellion.
Right.
They say to Saul, look, you're drawing too much attention. We're not ready yet. So what happens? These rogue people go off and the rebellion's like, you know what? I guess we're ready. Let's just send everything we have at them right now. And if we all die, well, meh.
Wait, hey, Boss Dreven, Mon Mothma, I just heard on the CB that all our troops are on Scarif trying to get the plans. Wait, they are? Oh, that's what I always wanted. Yes, let's go. Let's
Yeah,
go.
send everybody.
I love it. That said, all joking aside, this is, I think, the best part of Rogue One. Some of the best
Fabulous.
action that you can get. It is so wonderful. I didn't even, we take a lot of notes. I couldn't take notes. I was just loving it. I was like, oh,
No,
this is
no,
great. Oh, this is
it's so
great.
good.
This is
It's
so
so good.
great. This is so great because we had,
K2 goes out like a boss,
oh,
just a
incredible
boss.
boss. I even before Andor, I thought that was a great death. I thought it was still wonderful, heroic in this because we've kind of become attached to Melshi. To me, it seems like Melshi dies off camera in the Battle at the Beach, which is a bit tough. Chirrut does his long march to flip the
Love
master
it.
switch,
Love it.
you know, and then Cassian and Cassian and Jin have been locked in. They have to manually go pull the thumb drive out of the computer to get the plans. And then Krennic, who really has not succeeded in much in this movie, he did have a successful first test of the Death Star, but after that, as we mentioned, he got fired. He has one minor success in that he realizes, wait a minute, there are people in here. I know what to do. and he gets a shot and knocks out Cassian for a bit. So good work, Krennic. You finally had a bit.
So good, and of course he's up there at the end.
Yeah, he's up there at the end. Jin is on her way to finally. She's done all the silly subquests to finally be able to transmit the plans when who steps out? Krennic with a blaster. And what, of course, does he say to Jin? Who are you? But unlike our true hero, Cyril, Jin didn't freeze at that moment. Or I guess she kind of did, but where was Carol Rylance when you needed it?
It would have been good too if she had said, "I've known who you were all along."
Oh, there you go. And Cassian's big hero moment, he saves Jin, knocks down Krennic, doesn't kill Krennic. We need Krennic alive to die the sweetest ironic death. Cassian, who asks Jin after they transmit the plans, do you think anybody's listening? Or maybe that was something Jin asked to Cassian. I forget who asked it. But when I heard that, I thought back to Narkina 5 when Cassian was yelling at his fellow prisoners, nobody's listening. We can talk here in the prison. They're not listening. The Death Star arrives, and RIP all the heroes in this movie, Catfish. All the heroes. Everybody that we followed the whole movie long, they gone.
This was, even though this movie was a one-off, this was a shock to me the first time seeing the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Just a real shock. Like, you got to be kidding me.
What's funny is I didn't realize it would go this way but when K2 died, I was like, oh, wait a minute. You know, to me, this sounds, I'm maybe sounding cynical, like, oh, K2 is so fun and great. You're not going to have him in further adventures and keep making toys. No, you're taking him out. And so that was like, uh-oh. All the heroes in the movie have died. Even the one I joke about, Admiral Raddus, he's dead too. When out comes the big guns. This was the last thing shot for Rogue One. Gareth Edwards did direct this, even though Tony Gilroy did actually direct some of these reshoots that he wrote. But Gareth Edwards did direct this incredible Darth Vader hallway scene, which has gone down as the best, one of the best moments in Rogue One, with a character who's barely in Rogue One, Darth Vader. But it shows how incredible all of these heroes on the rebellion were willing to get those plans. Like everybody in that hallway, they gone. The ship takes off with the plans, leaving a couple guys outside. You know, they weren't outside for long because Vader took care of them, but still, whoa. I love that.
You know what's really cool about this too is that you watch Rogue One. Sure, there's Darth Vader, there's Moff Tarkin, there's not a lot in it, but it's all about this story. And for me, at least, watching it and being engaged in it, you don't connect it with. You're just like, okay, this is a thing they have to do, and then so that in the end, when it gets connected to Princess Leia, you're like, wow, that's cool. That's cool.
What did you think of her CG? I think her CG is actually kind of rougher than Darkin's in a lot of ways.
Oh, I don't know. Her CG wasn't great, but she's still better looking than Moff Tarkin, so I don't know.
Peter Cushing.
All right, Bubba, that's it. That's the end. Oh my God, there's Rogue One. It's the end of Andor.
That's the perfect season 3.
Perfect season 3. Everybody dies. I love it. All right, Bubba. Well, listen, we've got some before we get to our listener feedback, which we love, and is the best thing on this show. We're gonna play a couple more games. First of all, we've got our most valuable rebel and most valuable Imperial. Bubba, who is your most valuable rebel?
Somebody who I thought his work, covered the entire film, and that's Lonnie. Lonnie. I'm kidding. In this movie, how about K2? Give it up to K2SO. Him locking them in, him killing stormtroopers, giving them chance to get the plans. I'm giving it to K2SO. Overpowered, but certainly fun to watch. Who you got?
Bubba,
Who's your
I think
MVR?
that's good, but I disagree. I think it's someone whose long shadow echoes, stands over the entire Andor series, including Rogue One. And that is obviously Jyn Erso, who's been a rebel for so long.
Cassian got dumped. Jyn is the rebound. All right, how about your most valuable Imperial, Catfish? Who is the most valuable Imperial in this movie?
For showing that, as they say in the business world, sucking up and crapping down never get you anywhere in the Star Wars universe. It's my boy Krennic. He
What?
learned a lesson.
Well,
As you give, so shall you receive.
no, no, no. Catfish, that's completely wrong. The most valuable Imperial in this movie is Krennic. But why?
Why?
Well, it's because of the scene at the end of the movie. I keep the post-credit scene I keep talking about.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
They have these guys and they're like, hey, turns out we mined more calcite than we need. What should we do with all this calcite? Oh, make another Death Star? Okay, sure. Let's do it. Orson Krennic, the most valuable Imperial. That's what I say. Catfish,
Oh
we
my God.
also wonder what's the
Yeah.
Mandolicious line of the episode.
So many of them. All right. We usually separate this into two categories, funny and badass. Here's my pitches for funny.
Oh.
The beginning, too great. Too great in the very first flashback where Galen Erso says, "You're confusing peace with terror." And Krennic says, "Well, you got to start somewhere."
Gold, but this next one from Krennic Catfish, so good, so
So
good.
good. Galen's trying to pretend, "Oh, my wife is dead. I'm completely bereft." Lyra pops up with a gun, and Krennic says, "Here's Lyra, back from the dead. It's a miracle." And he says it's so deliciously dry. It's
Ba-boom. I
amazing.
love that.
The
Those
first
are pretty
time we
good.
meet K2SO when he's picking up Jin, he says, "Congratulations, you're being rescued. Please do not resist."
He gave Jin the Enza Ryland street limit. Remember? R.I.P. Enza. So
Oh my
good.
God. All right. The first time when our boy Donnie Yen gets captured and they put a hood over his head and he says, "Are you kidding me? I'm blind."
How did he know they were putting a hood over him? He was lying.
All right. Vader to Krennic, "You were not summoned here to grovel." So good.
Vader
And
doesn't know
then
what movie he's watching. He was there to grovel.
our boy K2, he's the MVP of the Mandalicious lines. He says before they leave, "Jin, I'll be there for you." Cassian said I had to.
Oh, bam. But how
Bubba,
about
I had no badass lines, but one groaner.
a
It's a
groaner?
groaner when Vader says to Krennic after doing the Force choke, "Careful not to choke on your aspirations, Krennic." That's a groaner. Somebody cut that line. Boo. All right, Bubba, do you have any badass or pitches for any other Mandalicious lines of the episode?
Well, I can't remember. I didn't write it down verbatim because I think almost everything that K2SO says in this movie is gold. And so one of them that I always laugh at so much is they're like, boy, if we can't get through this shield gate, we're all going to be dead here in the vacuum of space. And K2's like, not me. I can survive in the vacuum of space. So good.
that was so good.
But
Oh
I
my
actually think
God.
I think you did pull the best one. I'm here for you, Jin. Because I've got my programming says I have to. Gold, cat.
So
Gold.
good. All right. Oh man, I am for some reason it
Yeah.
just makes K2's first line to me is so good when he says, "Congratulations, you're being rescued. Please do not resist." It's just oh, it's an amazing introduction. All right, Bubba, it is
Yeah.
time for
Andor, what's that secret you're keeping?
all right, what question do you want answered? Sorry, there's no next episode. What do you need explained to you about anything in Andor, Bubba?
How in the world, when they're trying to make contact with Saw Gerrera in this movie, do they not send his huffing buddy Wilman? Why? I know Wilman had his leg injured, and maybe you think,
But not as bad as Saw.
no, that's oh my goodness. We thought Wilman had injured his leg in the Gorman massacre. No, he was from huffing too much. I think why don't you call his huffing buddy? Wilman, how about this? Wilman, what you up to? Vel, what you up to? Kleya, what you up to? Tell us what you did for these next 5 years of the rebels defeating the Empire. That's my question. How about you? What do you got?
I mean, my question is, why can't we have a what if for all of these characters
Oh, that'd be
and or
good. That'd be good.
look, not up. This is your a highly praised show. let's just run it back in an alternate universe. Let's have
Yeah.
it again, Cyril and Dedra. This
Yes.
time make them a comedy duo. Let's do it.
Turn out the lights and do it. Yes. Bow, 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 bow. Hey, listeners, the best part of every podcast, we save the best for last, your feedback. We asked you guys, hey, what do you think about Rogue One? Let's hear your feedback. A true loyal listener, Camille on Threads, who's at CamShay23 on Threads, she wrote, I love the series ending of Andor. I watched Rogue One right after and I cried. Don't remember crying when it came out. It's amazing how tense you can feel watching the show and the movie, even when you know how it turns out. That is wonderful feedback from Camille. Thank you so much. I 100%.
I love it. Camille, I completely respect your being emotional and crying here. You know who's crying I don't respect, Bubba? It's Matthew Murdoch, our good old friend Double M. He admits to being Imperial scum.
What?
He said after seeing Bix's scene, he cried so hard he couldn't watch Rogue One and see Cassian go through that movie without knowing. You mean without knowing he'd been cuckolded and Bix had somebody else's baby?
It's terrible. Catfish.
All right, loyal listener Zephyr Cat says 10 out of 10 double T's.
Wait, double T's?
Terrific, Tony.
Oh,
Gilroy has given us a masterpiece, full stop. You guys are my favorite YouTube channel since I found you during Silo Season 1. Thank you so much, Zephyr Cat.
We've already talked about Shirley's feedback on YouTube. She gave us a nice pat on the back. She said, thank you for the great content. You two were great company through the 4 weeks of Andor.
Yeah, heck yeah.
She says, the series was an amazing story, very well told. Dedra and Luthen scenes in those final episodes. She thought that was great, the two of them together. Wow. And then Dedra and Krennic. She loved all the scenes, but she agrees with you, Catfish. The Luthen and Kleya flashback story we got there at the very end should have been given to us on the first week. I assume she means maybe the first week of season 2 or maybe the first.
Yeah.
So
she said she didn't like Kleya in season 1.
Oh, so she wanted in season 1.
Interesting.
Okay.
That would have been great.
Okay.
It says poor Lonnie, I don't understand him and his motivations. Listen, you know who gave him a stern talking to? Jyn Erso. That's why he was so dedicated.
When did she contact Lonnie? Kind of lost me there, Catfish. Sure. Hey, we had a new person, and this is on social media, that hopefully a new person. I don't remember this handle. They said, it's Pretty 1998. And Pretty wrote, does anybody know Catfish's real name? Where have we seen him? I definitely remember his face, but not the movie. Catfish, you've been in a lot of movies. Which movie do you think Pretty remembers you from?
Well, I don't know. It might be Amsterdam. That's the most recent and I would say of the movies I've done, the biggest part. I mostly do TV, not movies, because I'm too big for movies.
Amen.
I'm over the top, not subtle, and my eye work is excessive.
Yeah, that's
all right. Tails Yuki, another loyal listener, says,
thank you.
Andor went way beyond. It's not just amazing Star Wars, it's amazing TV, amazing media in general.
Oh, yeah.
Rare are the occasions where we are gifted with such a high level of both writing, acting, directing, photography, etc. for any projects. I don't know if we'll get more Star Wars at this level because I don't know if we'll get more TV in general at that level. I hope for it, sure, because that's what builds rebellion. But even if we don't, I think I'll be content that we were lucky enough to live in a time where a show like Andor existed. Agreed.
Thank you. We love Yuki. We love Carolina, I believe, Johnson, Caro Joso. She said, hey, great breakdown and review you guys did of the final bit of Andor. She says, I'm going to believe that Kleya is Andor's sister. Wait a minute.
Yes,
what?
Yes.
Wow. She says, now realizing there was never an answer, that really bums me out. Why introduce his knack of finding people as a hopeless search for his sister, instead of just admitting the force is strong with this one? Oh, I love that. Like the superpower of luck. That's the force. She wrote, I was really bummed that Andor, in those final batch of episodes, never thanked K2SL. Remember how K2SL is like, hey, I cleared a path. I've proven my worth. Cassian never says, yeah, you really have, K2SL. Civility is how we keep our humanity. Thank you.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
She says her most valuable rebel for the final 3 episodes of Andor is Vel, Catfish. What do you think about that?
Oh, all right. Well, what's the explanation?
She says Vel is the one who actually bridged the gulf between the information sharing, and without her, Mon wouldn't have gotten on board, and the galaxy would have been so doomed. Her most valuable Imperial is going to be Lonnie.
Wait, Lonnie?
Is Imperial. She said, without him, none of the rebel machinations would have amounted to much, as the Empire would have killed enough planets before the rebellion could make a cohesive counterattack.
All right, I love it. And on Twitter, Pride Foltz at Poet Amuse says, only on episode 11, but so far the show pulls no punches with the killing of darlings,
No.
but it does so with grace and understated simplicity. The character journeys are just superb. This is an elegant Star Wars show. So well acted, written, conceived, and directed. Completely agree.
No, thank you. I agree. And then finally, not so much about Andor, but we mentioned really we only have one guaranteed podcast for the rest of this calendar year 2025. We asked you guys, what are you watching? What do you like? What should we talk about? And we had a true loyal listener, Sean Gregan, who's at HeyRef on Twitter. Give us some thoughts, Catfish. What'd he say?
And he said you should think about covering slow horses. Jackson Lamb is one of the 21st century's greatest literary creations, and Gary Oldman really brings him to life. Bubba, it is late. They pump through these really quick. I think they're shooting seasons. They shoot it like 2 seasons back to back.
Yes.
I will say this, that is a great show. You know, it might be good also because sometimes you have to figure out what's going on. Bubba, you're really good at that. I will say one thing. Gary Oldman's performance in this show.
Slow horses. Yeah, let's hear it.
It's so amazing that I don't know about you, but I can smell him through the television screen.
No, that's not so good. Now, Slow Horses is on Apple TV. Let me say I have not watched it at all yet, and I haven't read those books.
Oh
about
my
Slough
God,
House.
it is so good. You will binge through it. There's only 6 episodes per season.
Okay.
You will, if you start it now, there maybe been 4 seasons. You will finish it within a week.
The only show
It
I'm
is
currently watching
amazing.
is Murderbot on also
Yeah,
on
what do you
Apple
and what are your
TV.
quick thoughts on Murderbot, Bubba? We talked about that last week.
First 2 episodes were good. I could see how it becomes better. I want a bit more. I kind of had some small chuckles. I want some big belly laughs, I guess. But it's good. What do you think?
Well, you know, the funny thing is, I think when I took my concern was that they wouldn't be able to capture the interior dialogue
Yeah, because that is
of
a first
Murderbot.
person. Those stories are written in first person narration,
I
and that's
thought
tough
that
in TV.
I thought that was amazing. I do think they take away some of the humor by making the colonists he's working with more laughable slash
True.
ridiculous. They're not that. They're do-gooders, but they're not like idiots. And it's making them a little bit more like idiots right now, and it's taking some of the enjoyment away from me.
Okay. Listeners, what are you guys watching? Carolina, excuse me. I don't know. I also gave us some ideas of shows we should do. She
Let's hear
said, listen, she thought about Foundation on Apple TV Plus, Doom Patrol on Max/HBO Max, Leverage, both incarnations of Leverage. And she mentions a final Apple TV show, The Studio. She says Foundation because that new season is coming out soon. Doom Patrol because Mark Shepard said in a recent panel that a lot of people in the world have slept on the show, and she agrees with that. She thinks it's a really good take on the genre. She says Leverage because they think it's a very clever show with relevant storyline. And she thought we should talk about The Studio because Catfish, your relevant experiences could give great insight and humor into our favorite industries. Now, I have never mentioned this before, but believe it or not, I have sold the script. I've never mentioned that on the podcast before, but I have sold the script, so I could talk about the industry,
Absolutely.
the studio too. Catfish, are you watching any of those? I watched the first 2 of The Studio. I have not gone further than that.
I've finished the first season of The Studio. I watched the first season of Foundation, but was not interested in the rest. I think I binged like the first 2.5 seasons of Doom Patrol. The funny thing
That's
about
a good
Doom,
cast on Doom Patrol. I've not seen it, but it's a
but
good cast.
the funny thing about it though is it's the cast that because they had such a great cast, I felt like the show was kind of held back. In other
Huh.
words, because they want to show the cast and they don't want
Oh,
to do it Mandalorian style.
I see
They
what you're
want to
saying.
show the cast, so they keep doing flashbacks before they came what they were.
Right.
And at a certain point, I thought the flashbacks were holding the show back.
Okay, and sorry, did you say I have not watched Doom Patrol. I have not watched Leverage. You ever watch Leverage? What's that on
I
TNT
watched like the
originally?
first three, the old school
Yeah.
seasons of Leverage. Uh, did that have Timothy Hutton? It had somebody in it
Oh,
that
he
was
was in one of
famous,
them.
or
Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, hey, keep those ideas coming in. Thank you so much for those suggestions. For everybody here at Double PHQ, my name is Bubba. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky. I love talking about you at Fit and Trim. That's FITTENTRIM at Fit and Trim on social media.
And I am Catfish. You can hit me up at G to the man. That is GETOTHEMAN on Instagram and Blue Sky. And if you're a Brooklyn Nine-Nine fan, I was Sam Boyle. That's how you'll be able to figure out my
Oh,
name.
there you go.
Anyway, we will talk to you no more about but there will be more seasons of Star Wars television shows. So we will talk to you once again in the future on
Parsec Passion. That was like I'm all messed up because that's half Luth and half the client. Ugh, I'm all messed up.